issues. Let us know if they continue, but we think we got the problem solved. Zach Ewing with Jim Derry here. Jim, I'm sorry, you were saying that was the fakest 22-point victory you've ever seen.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I don't know what part I got cut off, but you talk about total yards, 100 more for the Panthers, the worst team in the NFL. They had the ball 10 minutes more than the Saints. Again, the worst team in the NFL. So, I mean, I'll go back to, and I'll be talking about this tomorrow. I just don't understand why Derek Carr looked like a concussed quarterback until that final 6 or 7 minutes of the ball game when he finally started to look good. And again, I just don't understand the reasoning. But I will say this, and I joked about it upstairs. Dennis Allen with his chopping wood comment. If there was ever a game that you were chopping wood, it was this one, because that's about all the Saints did was chop wood.
I mean, look, the Saints 207 total yards is an extremely low total for an NFL game. I think it's their second lowest of the year. The only lower one was their loss to the Bucs here, 26-9. They were under 200 yards. But having said that, the Saints kind of just managed this game. I mean, once they got up to the 14-3 lead, the Nephi Sewell, I'm going to call it a punt block. I don't care what it was a punt
Go
block.
ahead, I'll call it that too.
And the DeMarco Jackson touchdown. It was 14-3. Not that the Saints were good, but like they didn't have to be, and they kind of knew that.
Yeah, but that's not an excuse to play like that. It goes to show you there's something going on behind the scenes, because for Derek Carr, that's the game plan they obviously had. We're just going to run clock and just kind of like run this thing out. It didn't work that way in the second half. The Panthers had the ball more. Part of the reason why they had the ball more is because they were in desperation mode. The Saints were willing to go 3 and out and punt the ball and not do anything dumb.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. But at the same time, though, that was kind of the game plan. So if your game plan, which is a silly game plan in my opinion, is to come in and basically don't do anything stupid, that's a dumb game plan. It worked for you today. But, I mean, anyone that's impressed by this victory is just, so what?
Well, impressed is different than recognizing that it's an important win. I mean, and look.
We've seen players on the same, not only the players on the same side of same unit fighting with each other. You're talking about a center and a quarterback.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. It's a third down play. I think it was late third quarter, early fourth quarter, maybe. Saints are down Saints are up 14-6. But this is the time in the game when they keep going 3 and out. They're not even running time off the clock. They keep giving Carolina more and more chance. And as bad as Carolina is, if you gave them 50 chances, they would eventually score a touchdown. That's just the way the NFL works. And so the boos were raining down. It's 3rd and 2, and the Saints drop back to pass. And Panthers show blitz.
I said blitz.
Yeah, Panthers show blitz. You said it. Everybody saw it. I assume Derek Carr and Eric McCoy saw it. But whatever protection they called out, they were not on the same page. Blitzer comes unblocked, sacks Derek Carr. Well, he tried to throw it, but there was somebody in his face. He had to tuck it in, and then somebody's coming from the other side. Nobody was blocked on the play. I can't tell you whose fault that is without asking them, but they were both extremely frustrated with each other.
My favorite play of the whole day was when when Derek Carr threw it to Anders Pete. That was my favorite. That didn't work out too well. But all joking aside on that play, that just goes to show you, I don't care who's right and who's wrong. I mean, obviously someone was right, someone was wrong, but the team was wrong, and now you got infighting going on between the quarterback and the center. I don't know that I've ever seen a quarterback and center fight in a game before. I'm sure they fought before, like maybe in the locker room, or maybe they called each other on the phone and yelled at each other or whatever. Yeah. But I don't think I've ever seen on a field a center and a quarterback fighting with one another. Ever.
Very publicly, too. I mean, just
obviously.
National TV audience, not national, but a regional TV audience could see it.
It's embarrassing.
They showed it on Red Zone, so I guess that's a national audience. Yeah. I mean, it was like, it was bad. But the Saints actually played better after that. When the Panthers got that ball, they got a couple first downs, but the Saints stopped them on 4th and 1.
Maybe it woke Carr up.
Derek Carr throws 43 yards to A.T. Perry. Then he throws a first down to Jimmy Graham, a touchdown to Chris Olave, another touchdown to Graham later, and the Saints end up winning easily on the scoreboard, at least. Before we let you go, Jim, moving forward, Saints now 6-7, along with the Bucs and the Falcons. They get an assist from Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay actually in first place by tiebreakers now, but the Saints still play both of these teams, so they control their own destiny right now. Do you expect Saints to be NFC South favorites again in the morning when odds come out?
No, I think it'll be what and what between the three. Who's ahead slightly won't matter. I think the three will be close. I think Atlanta still will be probably a slight favorite, and it should be. But if you do take away a positive, and it can't all be negative, you're right. I mean, they won the game. Their objective was to win the game. It doesn't matter how you win the game. So that is the objective in the end. So all the negativity aside, you're right. They do control their own destiny. It doesn't matter how. I know there are a lot of fans out there that are actually rooting for them to lose. That doesn't do you any good, especially now that you've got 6 wins. It really doesn't do you any good to lose now. It's not going to help anything.
Most you're going to get is like a top 12,
right.
14 draft pick. I mean,
for them to fire Dennis Allen at this point, which is what a lot of fans want, they literally have to lose out. It's not going to happen. So at this point, you might as well jump on the bandwagon. But look, I think this Saints team I said it all along. I still believe it. As bad as they played today and still won, as bad as they've been playing, first win in a month, you said it earlier. The Saints are still the best team in this division. There's still value if you want to bet on them. I still think they will win the division, but it's not going to be easy, and they got to play better starting next week because the Giants are definitely a better team than the Panthers.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say anybody isn't a better team than the Panthers at this point.
True.
So, Saints win at 28-6. This is the Saints Insider postgame show. He's Jim Derry, sports betting writer at the Times-Picayune, NOLA.com, and you can catch him on his Datitude podcast, which you'll have one out tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, so check that out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be right back on the Saints Insider postgame show with Saints beat writer Matthew Paris right after this.
We are Tulane doctors. Physicians and scientists working side by side to advance academic medicine. We give our community access to the best possible medical remedies, developing state-of-the-art treatments to improve quality of life, address public health crises, and cure disease. All in passionate pursuit of our mission to provide inspired patient care for generations to come. Tulane Doctors. The future of medicine is here.
The Times-Picayune always gets it right. Jay's on top.
Not quite. It says here the Crusaders are the best.
I think you mean the Greenies, buddy. These sports writers know what's up.
At least you're wearing the right colors, but we know why people read the paper. The one thing we can all agree on, we trust the Times-Picayune.
Subscribe today. Read it today. Trust it today. The Times-Picayune.
You're never gonna make the front page wearing that.
Welcome back to the Saints Insider postgame show live from the Caesars Superdome. Zach Ewing here now with Matthew Paris, Saints beat writer for the Times-Picayune and Advocate. Matthew, just from the Saints locker room, more of a relief in there, more of upset at the way they played despite the win. How would you judge the attitude?
Definitely a relief. There was some loud music. Guys are pretty upbeat. It didn't really seem like, some guys are frustrated, but it was a lot more joyous as you would expect after when I think they got were glad to get this monkey off their back of 3 straight losses and doing this. But the sense I got was the offense was definitely more frustrated with their performance, given that, they until the fourth quarter, they didn't really have much going for them.
Yeah, and finished with only 207 yards, second lowest total this year. I hate to keep going to this well, but as someone who's seen a lot of bad football, Washington football franchise beat writer for the last 6 seasons, this is about as ugly of a win. I mean, I shouldn't say that because you see teams win like the Chargers won 6-0 last week and stuff, and there are different types of ugly wins, but this did not feel like a 22-point victory.
No, and I heard you talking about before about how they moved into first place for the NFC South, but it doesn't give you exact confidence that they're going to go on this run now and still win the division. They have Tampa coming up in a few weeks. That's going to be a big game for them. They close the season with Atlanta, but you look at the Rams, they've been playing a lot better. I know they lost today, but that's another one that's hard. I mean, even the Giants, there were times today when the Saints were playing, I was thinking that, maybe the Giants could win this one next week. That wasn't the question for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you go with the thought that the Giants are better than Carolina, which they're 3 games ahead of them in the standings, the Saints did not play like they could beat anybody but Carolina, at least at times today.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's not even to mention the spat between McCoy and Carr and all that happened with that. So
let's talk about that. You didn't go into the Derek Carr press conference. We kind of split up in there, so we'll talk to Luke about that. But were you able to talk to Eric McCoy? Did he speak, and what was the fallout of that?
Yeah, we were able to talk to him, and he offered a public apology to Carr. said that a public disagreement deserved a public apology and that it was his bad for losing his cool and frustrations had boiled over. I asked him if Carr had said anything to kind of prompt the outburst. He said no, that he just lost his cool. Now, I'd have to go back and watch that. I'm not sure if I believe that off the top of my head because we've seen these outbursts from Carr throughout the season. But, if that is what happened, then it was uncharacteristic, to say the least, because I know I haven't been here long, but Eric McCoy isn't the type that seems like to throw a tantrum like that.
Oh, kind of a slow and steady offensive lineman, stays calm. Now he publicly apologized. Did he accept blame for the play, or do we have any idea who missed the call? I mean, the Panthers were blitzing on the play, and the Saints obviously did not pick it up. Do we have any idea how that happened?
No, not unless Carr addressed it, but he didn't go into the breakdown of the play. It looked like on replay, Ruiz was the one, like him and Ruiz went to another blocker, and then that freed up the rusher.
Yeah, both went to the same guy.
Yeah. But
so very interesting. But look, the long and the short of it is the Saints have 4 games left and control their own destiny at this point in the NFC South. If they can keep winning, they will be in the playoffs.
Yeah, they do. And I wonder how much today they can build on. I mean, I think their running game was maybe the best it looked all season, just in terms of what they were able to find early with Alvin Kamara and Williams. But they got away from it. Carolina did some things that went with bigger personnel packages to kind of take that away. They were a little bit better in the red zone, except for that ugly first drive. And then Taysom Hill comes back. They should be better there. But again, it's the Panthers. They're 1-12. They're the worst team, and you'd have to be an optimist to kind of look at the Saints' performance and say they can really build on that.
You don't celebrate for being better than the Panthers, although you do celebrate any win in the NFL, and particularly in Week 14. Any other takeaways from the locker room before we let you go that you noticed?
No, just guys were pretty cheerful. The special teams corner was pretty happy with their block punt. Sewell was saying that they should have had an elaborate celebration. They hadn't really planned for a block punt like that. But besides that, I mean, that was the most joy you saw in that locker room, was because of that play. And that play had really kind of gave the Saints the momentum. But I think with this, they couldn't just build upon it with their offense, which made it ultimately a frustrating day for them.
Yeah. One more question we have a couple of comments here. Stefan says we need more Jimmy Graham. Yeah. Marquez says he agrees with, Jimmy Graham obviously has made an impact when he's been in the game, and yet he was inactive for, I think, 5 straight weeks earlier this year. Was that addressed? Why haven't we seen more Jimmy Graham if he's effective?
That's a great question. Clearly this coaching staff didn't think he was the answer to the red zone woes because he had been inactive. Now it got so dire to the point that they finally put him in there. But look, he has 4 catches and 3 of them are touchdowns. Now that's a great rate, but you're going to need to see Jimmy Graham do more things, I think, before he becomes this kind of go-to weapon. But look, the guy's still very big. He still has some athleticism, and if he can be that decoy or threat in the red zone, that's going to be okay. They need every help that they can get at this point, and credit to Jimmy Graham for making plays.
No doubt about it. He's Matthew Paris. He has this game story from this one up on NOLA.com, and it will be in the Times-Picayune tomorrow. We'll let him get back to the press box. And Matt, if you can make the handoff to Luke Johnson, he is in the house as well. We made this read earlier. I know the audio was bad, so I'm going to say it again. This season's post-game coverage is brought to you by Tulane Doctors. When it comes to healthcare, choose a partner that sets the standard. Tulane Doctors are bringing the medicine of tomorrow to the Gulf South today. Find your physician at TulaneDoctors.com. Welcome in Luke Johnson, beat writer for the Times-Picayune and Advocate, along with Matt. And look, I guess a win's a win. It's been 35 days for the Saints.
Yeah. Look, I know it wasn't pretty. I know people are not satisfied with the way that win shook out. At the end of the day, they're out of here with a win. Probably definitely by more of a margin than a lot of us thought. The game kind of played out the way a lot of us thought. It was really ugly for much of the game. I think it was a 14-6 game midway through the fourth quarter. Yeah. And they got a couple scores late to really put it away. But I get what the Saints are saying here, and that you get out, you're happy with the win no matter how it comes. And I know I've said before that style points matter, and I do think that's true. But style points matter less than a win does at the end of the day. So I think. You just take what you get today, and you hope you play better as the season progresses. We'll see if it actually happens that way.
Yeah. We asked Matt about the Eric McCoy side of the McCoy versus Derek Carr spat there early in the fourth quarter. Did you hear Derek Carr's side of it?
Yeah. We talked to Derek at the podium after the game, and in typical Derek Carr fashion, he's short on details. He was asked a lot about it. At one point he got a question that was kind of probing further into it off, and he said, "Look, I'm just not going to be negative." So I think his side of things was that they were both right on some things, they were both wrong on some things. The emotions got heated in the moment. They very quickly resolved it afterwards, and it wasn't an issue. So I think it is worth pointing it out that that it happened, and it has happened with Derek specifically a couple times this year, just getting into these heated interactions with people on the sidelines. I think one of the things we heard about him coming into the season, he's a really fiery, competitive guy. I think that has some ups and its downs with that. But I think the more important thing is that it seemed to me to be water under the bridge pretty quickly. And you just I think you got to keep an eye out on that as we get into the last 4 games of the season here, because it's not something you want to see your starting quarterback doing. It is just sometimes something that happens in the game.
I mean, when that happened and the Panthers get the ball back and they drove into Saints territory on the next drive, ultimately they're not good enough to have done anything about it, but it really did feel like the Saints season was teetering there.
It did. I mean, it did for much of this game. Let's be real about it. I mean, at some point midway through the fourth quarter, Derek had 37 passing yards in this game. Right. I mean, did he finish with 100?
And the team had less than that because of sacks. I mean, it was really bad.
It was bad. Panthers have a pretty good defense for a team that came in 1-11 today. Like, you got to give them some credit for it. Saints were down, obviously, some weapons, but it still shouldn't be that hard. Right. And I think Derek said after the game that he's playing through a fractured rib, which anybody who's ever had a rib injury knows how painful that is. I think everybody knows just from the way the season's played out that Derek is obviously a really tough football player, but the results have to be better. And look, again, they won the game. That's the most important thing, but you need better play out of your quarterback, especially somebody that you invested that much money into.
Yeah. On the defensive side, Saints obviously shut the Panthers down, some really bad offense, but they were able to make some plays, which I think is important for this unit that struggled a lot over the last month.
Yeah, I think so. And look, one of the things that was really encouraging me is the effort continues to be there, right? There's still a lot of things that are concerning about this game. The Panthers had, I think, 174 rushing yards in this game, or somewhere around there, 180, something like that. Not good enough. They had some explosive plays, both in the passing game and the running game. They had what would have been a wide open touchdown that Bryce Young just overthrew. I mean, there's some cracks, but like you saw, 48-yard run by Miles Sanders, Paulson Adebo flying from clear across the field to tackle him at the 1-yard line. That ended up being a 4-point play. And who knows how this game shapes out if they score a touchdown there, and it's a much tighter game, and maybe things play out a little bit differently. I think you're seeing some things that you like. Pass rush was much better today than it has been really since probably week 1 or week 2.
Yeah.
So still, it's this game feels like a but game. They looked terrible for much of the game. They won by 22 points. The defense had a lot of warts in this game, but they had some really good moments too. It's just, here again, we are 13 games into the season, and it's really just hard to pin down what the Saints team is.
I mean, you can but on the whole season. The Saints have looked terrible at times this year. They've had more downs than ups. But here we go into the last 4 games of the season. They control their own destiny. If you look at the schedule, none of them are unwinnable. I think the game in LA probably the most difficult, and the home game against the Giants next week probably the easiest of the 4. So they go into that stretch knowing if they keep winning, they will be in the playoffs.
Yeah, but
again, yeah.
And it just seems like every single game this year feels like a microcosm of the season, which I guess makes sense. But at least they didn't give up 21 points in the first half this time.
Yeah, no, well, at least they get to win 28-6 over the Panthers. We're going to take our last break here on the Saints Insider postgame show. We'll be back with Jeff Duncan and Rod Walker right after this.
We are Tulane doctors. Physicians and scientists working side by side to advance academic medicine. We give our community access to the best possible medical remedies. developing state-of-the-art treatments to improve quality of life, address public health crises, and cure disease. All in passionate pursuit of our mission to provide inspired patient care for generations to come. Tulane Doctors. The future of medicine is here.
The Times-Picayune always gets it right. Jay's on top.
Not quite. It says here the Crusaders are the best.
I think you mean the greenies, buddy. These sports writers know what's up.
At least you're wearing the right colors, but we know why people read the paper. The one thing we can all agree on, we trust the Times-Picayune.
Subscribe today. Read it today. Trust it today. The Times-Picayune.
You're never gonna make the front page wearing that.
I don't know. 2 minutes. Oh, we're back. We're back here on the Saints Insider Postgame Show. Jeff Duncan, Zach Ewing, discussing the fight between Eric McCoy and Derek Carr here. Let's start with that, Jeff, since we're talking about it. And teammates do fight. They get in arguments. It's happened publicly with Derek Carr several times now this year. This one seemed as bad as any with Eric McCoy, a normally very even-tempered guy, blowing up at him. And we're talking about a win here, by the way, but that was a low moment.
Yeah, it's going to overshadow a lot that happened on the field today. And I think you make a good point that the fact that it happened with Eric McCoy, a team captain, one of the more respected players on the team, that's very uncharacteristic for Eric McCoy. And no matter how much they want to sugarcoat it or gloss over it, it's not a good look. I mean, it's not a good look for anybody involved. I thought Eric McCoy afterward handled it perfectly, fell on the sword, basically apologized. That just can't happen. You can't show that kind of public, dissension between teammates, even if it was a flashpoint. It just can't happen. It obviously is illustrative of just how frustrated the team was at that point. I mean, through the first 3 plus quarters, this offense was terrible. Really, I mean, 7 points off of special teams play. Otherwise, you only had 1 touchdown.
Finished with 207 yards. I mean, that's,
right. Yeah, I mean, 100-something yards passing. Derek Carr on his first 6 third downs was 1 for 6 with a sack and an intentional grounding. 8 yards on 6 third down plays. Just not good enough. I know Carolina's got a good defense. They're healthy now. They're a top pass defense, but still
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
That's just as our colleague Rod Walker is writing. The Saints were fortunate they were playing the Carolina Panthers today.
Yeah, it's funny because the Saints won for the first time in 5 weeks today, and it might be as bad as they've played all season, at least at times.
Yeah, I think you could say they won, but it was a dissatisfying win. And everybody knows, including the players and Dennis Allen afterward, they got to play a lot better if they're going to win any of these games the rest of the way. This was the one real gimme on the schedule. And even with the Giants coming in here next week, the Giants certainly are playing better than Carolina Panthers. They're going to have to play better if they're going to beat them next week.
Yeah, Giants play Monday Night Football tomorrow night against Green Bay and then come to the Dome on Sunday. With the Bucs giving the Saints an assist by beating the Falcons today, we now have a 3-way tie atop the NFC South. So as I said to Luke, I mean, you can say what you want about this game and say what you want about this season, and a lot of it is not good. However, the Saints here going into the final quarter of the season control everything in front of them.
No, but it's just hard to be optimistic. Yeah. Just watching the team play, you just see so many weak areas of this team. Now, I guess the one reason for optimism would be they managed to win today without Taysom Hill, without Marshawn Lattimore, without a lot of really key players that should be back soon. Michael Thomas should be back, in a couple weeks. So maybe they can slip out with a win against the Giants, get back to 500, and then you get some of those key guys back. Then you can maybe make a push. But going to L.A. and playing the Rams, who took the Ravens on their home field today to overtime, that's not going to be easy. But anything's possible with the way that the league is right now. It's very mediocre beyond the top 5 or 6 teams.
No doubt about that. Quick word on the Saints defense. They needed a get-right game. I think in a lot of ways they got it. Now, Bryce Young had some open receivers downfield in this game and just missed them. Bryce Young was a disaster, I felt, in this game. But the Saints defense at least gets something to feel good about.
Yeah, I was impressed with the plays on the ball, in particular, Ike Yadam, Alante Taylor, Demario Davis with a big pass breakup. I mean, they were sticky in the coverage all day long. Now, that's a very anemic Panthers offense, but nevertheless, you're still making the plays that had to be made. I thought they rose up in the red zone at a particular time when they really needed to. When Carolina got some momentum, they stuffed them, forced a field goal. But, this defense still struggles a little bit with mobile quarterbacks. I thought Bryce Young could have made more, production on the ground if they would have utilized that asset. They probably just don't want their franchise quarterback taking any unnecessary blows in a season.
They're a lost season.
But they could have, I think, utilized his mobility a lot more, and particularly in the running game. So it was hard to take much away beyond some of the plays on the ball by the pass defense. The run defense gave up over 200 yards again. That's an area where teams are going to continue to exploit the Saints until they prove they can stop it.
Jeff Duncan, columnist for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. You can read his work at NOLA.com/Saints. Thanks, Jeff. Let him make the handoff to Rod Walker, and we'll wrap things up here. Want to remind you, we do have the Saints Insider podcast every Wednesday and Friday. We'll be live Wednesday afternoon. Not actually live, but we'll tape Wednesday afternoon and Friday afternoon. And appreciate subscriptions to the Saints on NOLA.com YouTube channel. Subscribe to the channel. Sign up for notifications. Hit the like button. All of that good stuff. And we'll wrap things up with Rod Walker. He's our other columnist. And Rod, you sent me kind of the topic of your column today, and it's, boy, were the Saints lucky they were playing the Carolina Panthers today.
Yeah, I think if they were playing any of the other 30 teams in the league, they probably don't win this game. But, I mean, the Panthers were just really bad on offense. They actually ran the ball okay. Had over 200 yards, I think, rushing. But Bryce Young missed a lot of receivers, and a lot of the receivers just couldn't get separation. And
fell down on a 4th and 1. Jumped offside on the Saints 4th and 1.
I mean, this offense was even worse than we imagined. I think the Saints are, they're lucky to get a win. I mean, the score doesn't show that, but the score is a little deceiving, I think. I think if, they pulled away late, but, this game was pretty tight going into the fourth quarter and like 2 or 3 minutes into the fourth quarter.
Most important thing, obviously, week 14, you're in a 3-way tie for the division lead now. Like, the most important thing is to win. And the Saints had a 14-3 lead in the second quarter after I'm just going to call it a block punt. I know it wasn't officially a block punt, but Nephi Sewell's block punt. DeMarco Jackson scores the touchdown. They had control of this game. How much of the rest of it do you think is maybe them just trying to manage it? Never really got close, and so they never really had to open things up. I'm trying to make excuses for them. Are they valid?
I think if Carolina there's a field goal that would have made it 14-9. I think. If they make that field goal, I think this game turns a little differently. And I also think there was a play when Paulson Adebo stopped Miles Sanders on the long run.
At the 1 yard line.
If Adebo doesn't make that stop, Carolina scores. I mean, Sanders would have scored a play. And, they ended up going – they couldn't score from the 1 or 2 yard line. And, that was a big switch in the game. So I think Adebo's play there was really huge because Carolina's offense is just really bad. They needed a big score like Miles Sanders' run to get in the end zone, or they needed Bryce Young to connect on one of those passes. So I just think that the Saints did enough to win. So,
yeah, I mean, just to crystallize what Rod's saying, that you're talking about a Panthers team that had a punt block for a touchdown. They 4th and 1 on defense where Shai Tuttle jumps offside when everybody in the building knew the Saints were trying to get you to jump offside. They had a 4th and 1 on offense where I can't remember who it was, one of their backup running backs falls down, and he would have been open for an easy catch. He falls down. They missed the touchdown just before the half where Bryce Young had a man open inside the 5. They missed the touchdown when what you're talking about there, where go down the 1 yard line and go backwards and settle for a field goal. They don't. I mean, all these things the Panthers did wrong, and yet still it's a 1-possession game in the fourth quarter. Saints could not put them away until the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, Derek Carr, I thought he had a rough game. He made the one big completion to A.T. Perry, which that pretty much sealed it, because I think they were I don't know what they were up there. That kind of
as long as they had kicked a field goal there, they would have been okay.
That was going to be fine. Yeah. So they needed that big play. But outside of that play, and I mean, obviously threw some late touchdowns. Jimmy Graham caught one. Chris Olave caught one. But outside of those plays, man, I don't think they just didn't do a whole lot.
Yeah, pretty rough. But as I've said with the other guys, you can always say yeah, but with this team, they now enter the final. We'll call it the quarter of the season, 4 out of 17 games, with control of their own destiny, with another bad team coming in here, the New York Giants, who will be on a short week. And if you win that one, then you go into the final 3 games knowing you control your own destiny.
Yeah, and that's kind of where you – well, it's not where you want to be. I mean, you want to be in the league.
Yeah, you'd like to be in the number 1 seed, of course, but can't ask
the way
for more.
they've played to be in this position, I mean, I guess you got to be satisfied with that. I mean, I'm kind of looking ahead here, but I think that trip to L.A. on the short week is going to be a really tough one. So you got to beat the Giants next week for sure.
Get your opinion on the Derek Carr, Eric McCoy spat since we asked the others. Is that a normal teammates bickering at each other thing, or do you think it goes beyond that?
I mean, I think that happens, and I think that's what everybody said. I think the surprising part for me is that it was Eric McCoy who is – I would say he's one of the most mild-mannered guys on the team, but every guy on that offensive line is pretty mild. I mean, they're just a bunch of nice guys on the offensive line. So to see Eric McCoy react like that was a little surprising. I kind of listened in on his post-game in the locker room. You know, he said he lost his cool, and everybody's downplaying it, which I knew that's what they were going to do. I mean, that's what happens all the time.
And especially if you win the game.
Yeah, right. That
tempers cool down.
Cools down, yeah. So I think it just kind of says a lot about how frustrated the team is. But the fans are frustrated. Everybody's frustrated, and it's just spilling over and onto the field now, which you normally don't see. I don't think I've ever seen that since I've been covering the team. I'm sure like Jeff Duncan probably has. He's been around a little longer than me. But, yeah, I was surprised because it was Eric McCoy.
Let's take a step back and kind of look at a 5,000-foot view of Derek Carr. I mean, here's a guy who obviously has struggled at times. He may be one of the most polarizing players in the NFL right now. I mean, the guy's playing through a broken rib, gets himself back from a second concussion. I mean, obviously wants to be out there and wants to be helping this team. And yet then you got teammates being frustrated with him. I mean, how do you come down on the Saints can't be happy with the way the season has gone, but it's hard to also sit there and say, well, this is all Derek's fault.
Yeah, but I mean, man, his numbers today were
bad,
especially in the first half. I mean, it was 41 yards at halftime. In the third quarter, I think it fell down to 37 yards. He threw the little pass behind the line of scrimmage to Alvin Kamara. So, and this is a Carolina team. They knew that they weren't going to be able to pass the ball against. Carolina's a good pass defense. They kind of talked about that after the game, that they knew that this was a team that you probably can't throw deep on anyway. You got to just, take your kind of nickel and dime it. But, yeah, I mean, I do put most of the blame on Derek Carr. I just think that he's kind of been a big part of their problems this season.
I got to ask you, too, because you wrote on Monday, like Jameis Winston should start this game whether Carr gets cleared or not. And obviously Saints felt differently. But here he is, really the second time this season. He did it with the AC shoulder joint sprain back in week 3. Didn't play real well, lost that game to the Bucs. Didn't play well today, playing through a broken rib, coming back off a concussion. Saints win this game probably with Jake Haener starting at quarterback, if I'm being honest. I mean, the Panthers were terrible. I mean, you didn't need Derek Carr out there today.
Right, and that was kind of the whole point of my column this week. I just felt like this was the game against this team that, yeah, you said Jake Haener, but yeah, maybe me or you, right?
Well, I'm not gonna sign up for that duty, but I'll let you do that.
Yeah, I just feel like, I think this is a game they could have, but I mean, they've kind of shown that, hey, Derek Carr's our guy, and this is who we're gonna sink or swim with, and it worked today.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you don't want Jameis brings such variance. You don't necessarily want he's going to take risks. He's going to throw the ball down the field. He's going to turn the ball over. Maybe you don't want that because that opens up the chance that you lose. And it never, despite everything, never really felt like they were going to lose this game. But moving forward, Giants next week, another must-win for the Saints?
I would say so, especially with the Rams coming up right after that. I think you have to, in this 3-game stretch, I mean, I think you need to go 3-0. You almost have to go 2-1. And again, I don't think they're going to beat the Rams, so I think you do have to beat the Giants. I mean, the Giants' offense, statistically, coming into this week was actually worse than Carolina, which is almost kind of hard for me to believe that you can be worse than them. But that's what the stats say. So, but I do think the Giants probably. I mean, if Saquon Barkley's playing, I mean, you feel like
Tommy DeVito's played a little bit better. I mean, I know people make jokes about the guy living with his parents in Jersey, whatever, but you got to have to play better than you did today.
Yeah, I just feel like, I feel like, and I said earlier, I mean, I think any other team in the league probably would have beat the Saints today.
All right, so that'll do it for the Saints Insider postgame show. Saints beat the Carolina Panthers 28-6, move into a three-way tie for first place at 6-7 in the NFC South. And Rod Walker shaking his head, I think about says it all. We appreciate you joining us. Be with us Wednesday. We'll have a Saints Insider podcast Wednesday, and then we'll preview the Giants game Friday as well, and be back at the Dome next Sunday. So for our producer, Norm Bell, our cameraman, the producer, Zoe Collins-Rath, also thanks to Jim Derry, Matthew Paris, Luke Johnson, and Jeff Duncan for stopping by. He's Rod Walker. I'm Zach Ewing. Thanks for watching, everybody.